Oh, just one of the things that really caught my attention are known as the Schumann resonances. Um, do you know what do you know about the Schumann resonances?
Uh, the name sounds very familiar, but I can't put my finger on it right this minute. So
Yeah, so
it's
that's
vibration.
yeah, one of the very interesting things is that there's certain phenomenon on our planet that are really important that very few people talk about and or know of, and even less people understand in a qualitative way. And so the Schumann resonances are these global energy fields. They're part of the electromagnetic spectrum. So you have visible light, which we see, and then you have things like ultraviolet light and, of course, gamma rays, higher, very high frequency. And then you go down to thermal radiation, below visible light, the microwave band, radio waves. Near 0 hertz is the Schumann resonances, and these are, uh, yeah, here we go. These are huge in their wavelength because light travels very quickly, 300,000 kilometers per second, and at 8 hertz, the foundational mode, that gives it a wavelength of 40,000 kilometers. So that is equivalent to the circumference of the Earth. So these are the natural frequencies of light energy, the parts of the light spectrum that are naturally resonant with the physical dimensions of the Earth. And they're fed by all these sources like lightning strikes, they're fed by space weather, solar flare impacts, ionospheric currents up in the way in the upper atmosphere. They create and release Schumann energy. But we evolved in these for millions and millions and millions of years. And so once I found out about them, they really caught my attention because they're just a standard geophysical process, or you can measure them with different geophysical surveys in the magnetic field. People don't think of them much, but they are one of these things that touch and connect like everything together: biology, spirituality, consciousness, the earth, geophysics, the sun, space. Like they can be embedded into solar wind because they're just a frequency. So they can be generated in a whole bunch of ways, but they interact with us at a very deep biologic level and interact with the entire biosphere at a very deep level. So it's one of those things that kind of like pulled me and grabbed me. And so that's what I really kind of focus on in many ways. One of my main like topics that I talk about on my channel are the Schumann resonances. Um, and they're starting to become more well known just in general as people start to think more about Gaia consciousness and like how are we actually affecting our planet energetically, consciously.
So we would talk about these as positive vibrations. In other words, a lot of people say low vibration people are energy vampires, depressed. High energy people are more upbeat and positive and thinking. But in a lot of ways, what you're talking about is actually kind of opposite of that theory, where you're connecting with the whole, the one, the what is the singularity of the solar system beyond our planet too. Is that
Yeah, Godhead, whatever you want to call it. Um, I think they're one aspect. They're not like there's a there's people have put out like hypotheses and theories that consciousness is electromagnetic because you can measure brain waves and those are correlated to different states of consciousness. I think that they're one important aspect of consciousness, but I think consciousness goes beyond that. But what's interesting about the Schumann resonance is, yeah, this idea of like higher vibration is better, lower vibrations not as good. They're both valuable. Lower vibrations travel further. So if we're thinking like our biofield, for example, like this guy, like that, for example, your lower vibrations are going to travel out to a larger extent. And so you just want to make sure that's encoded with good information or, positive energy or just your true soul, like spiritual energy. And if you look at brainwaves, for example, like delta waves, 0 to 4 hertz, these are like the deep rhythms for sleep. Theta waves, 4 to 8 hertz, which is like REM sleep and dreaming. that's where a lot of like your most important information is stored, because they cycle the lowest, they have the least amount of information density, but they're also the strongest and the least likely to be disturbed. High frequency rhythms can kind of turn on then turn off. They're a little whimsical, so you want like these low frequency rhythms are incredibly important, and just because it's low frequency doesn't mean that it's bad. um, it's just yeah, what's encoded in there, what's encoded in these lower frequencies is more difficult to change, more resistant to change. But if you can encode your low frequencies, or just in general the low frequencies are encoded with good information, then that allows for the evolution of basically everything up beyond that to be easier, because they provide kind of that background signal that everything builds on. So the idea of like low vibe, high vibe is not 100% correct in my opinion. It's not as nuanced of a perspective as it should be.
And I'm so glad I brought that, or that we talked about that, because it is a great mystery. It's kind of like a show we did recently where monks actually transcend. In other words, they go into an inner state where essentially their mass is lost, and they end up being like this little shrunken human when they're left, and basically they've expelled all their energy. But and what I mean by that too is that, you know, again, it's like I don't think people understand what, or believe what we're talking about as a fact, that this energy, this vibration, whether it's a positive, negative, a high or a low vibration, they're all very similar in the essence that is what you are, your consciousness, your spirit, your energy level. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad that, you know, we clarified the fact that just because it's a lower vibration doesn't mean that it's a negative vibration. It's just as you clarified, stronger, so more powerful force of energy.